Panis, and I'll be moderating the webinar this morning. Thank you for your patience for the first couple of minutes while we address some technical issues, but we're ready to get started. We have a great agenda for this webinar. During this next hour, we will explore the topic of safe sleep from several perspectives. We will be giving some background about Flourish St. Louis, about safe sleep in St. Louis, listen to and learn from parents, national landscape of safe sleep, and local provider experts. And we'll conclude with a Flourish call to action. Our speakers on our panel today include Ms. Rosetta Jackson and Ms. Rose Purnell, community leaders, Dr. Joya Creer-Perry, the president and founder of National Birth Equity Collaborative, Dr. David Wathen, medical director at SSM Health Cardinal Glennon, Lori Behrens, executive director of SIDS Resources, and Melinda Olamiller, CEO for Nurses for Newborns. As we proceed through the agenda, please type your questions in the chat box. We will address questions at the end of the webinar, time permitting. If we run out of time for questions, we will capture your questions and make available question and answer document to make sure all of your questions do get answered. So what is Flourish St. Louis? Flourish is a community initiative working to address infant mortality by creating a movement for substantial and sustained change through our region. Our approach includes building public will to change the conditions in our community that have led to persistent high infant mortality and preterm births. The needs vocalized by those most impacted by this issue guide our solutions. And instead of addressing symptoms or creating new programs, Flourish's goal is to change the systems that impact families' ability to have a healthy pregnancy and raise a healthy baby. Flourish is funded by Missouri Foundation for Health. It initiated this collaborative effort, and Generate Health provides a backbone support for the initiative. Over 350 individuals and parents contributed to Flourish over the last couple of years through listening sessions and participating in planning meetings to identify themes and concerns that are contributing to why infant mortality is high in St. Louis. The themes outlined here led to the formation of an infant health action team. Some key areas of concern voiced in our community are a disconnect felt between providers and parents when it comes to understanding infant health care, the need for education and resources to help parents better understand developmental milestones and safe sleep practices. Outreach efforts to educate parents should be strengthened in areas of drug and alcohol use, nutrition and breastfeeding, and safe sleep. And a strong support for home visiting services to improve infant health and development and increase access to resources to promote the health of their family. So once formed, the action team set reducing unsafe sleep deaths as a first priority. The definition of sudden or unexplained infant death is a death of an infant less than 1 year of age that occurs suddenly and unexpectedly and whose cause of death is not immediately obvious before medical history review, death scene investigation, and autopsy. There are several diagnoses or types of deaths that fall into this category: sudden infant death syndrome, unknown causes, and accidental suffocation. This slide for the 2015 Child Fatality Review Program annual report shows the trends in SIDS fatalities and their sleep environment where the SIDS fatality occurred. SIDS fatalities are only a small portion of sleep-related infant deaths. So in 2015, 94 babies in Missouri were determined to be sleep-related. 14 of those were SIDS, and Child Fatality Review Program determined that 80 babies of the 94 may have been preventable if safe sleep practices had been followed. And you can see on this data that the majority of the SIDS deaths were occurred in sleep environments that were not designed for infants. In St. Louis City and County, SIDS rates, when we look at them by race, we see that SIDS and sleep-related deaths can happen to any baby regardless of race or education or economic status. However, there is a pronounced racial inequity in the city where Black infants are 4 times more likely to die of SIDS. There are many factors that can reduce SIDS, many of which also protect for sleep-related infant deaths and promote better health. This list provides an inventory of activities or factors that can contribute to reducing SIDS and promote infant health. Babies should sleep on their back on a firm surface with a fitted sheet with no soft objects in the crib. Pacifiers during sleep can be protective and help babies. And it's important that we stress that breastfeeding, not smoking during pregnancy or secondhand smoke exposure, getting good prenatal care and well child care, all are protective for SIDS as well as promoting good infant health. So with this foundation of background of infant mortality and SIDS and the establishment of the Safe Sleep or the Infant Health Action Team, I want to bring into the discussion 2 parents that are part of the Infant Health Action Team and feel passionate about this issue and are going to share their perspective. We have Ms. Rosetta Jackson, who's a community leader. She is a member of the Making Change Happen Leadership Academy and part of the FLOURISH Infant Health Action Team. We also have Ms. Rose Purnell, who is also a community leader and Making Change Happen Leadership Academy member, as well as the FLOURISH Infant Health Action Team. Ms. Jackson, I'd like to start with you and ask you what, from your perspective and experience, parents, caregivers, and our community kind of know about safe sleep.
I don't think the community knows about the safe sleep because it doesn't come up in our everyday conversations. So I don't think the awareness of safe sleep is there. And it's about traditions. Many people sleep with their children as a form of bonding and wanting the children to hear their heartbeat or just even have their scent. So people don't even realize that this is ignorance, but it's ignorance and not neglect. So I do believe that raising awareness about this is key.
Great, thank you, very important. And from your experience, what does the community know about resources that may be available related to safe sleep?
I don't really think people realize that there are resources out there because, again, the awareness has not been raised enough about the safe sleep. And I know there are resources out there, but many people are not able to access these resources. They don't have the capability to access these resources. Mm-hmm. And people may have the resources or know someone that have the resources, but unless you're good friends with somebody who knows these resources, you won't know about them. And I've had 5 beautiful children, 3 boys and twin girls, and I didn't even know that the pack and play was available to me until I came around and became a member of the FLOURISH. So that was just like, wow, all this time that the pack and play was available. And my twins are 5 years old now, getting ready to turn 6. So if I would have known, I could have spread the word about the different organizations that have classes about the safe sleep and that these pack and plays are available. And it's sad because I don't think people realize that losing a child isn't normal. I mean, they feel it's okay because so many people around them have lost a child. But it's not normal, and people are becoming numb to the point in the idea of losing a child before their first birthday. And I really believe that if we get the awareness and raise the awareness about safe sleep, that we can have a better STL turnaround.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. And I think what I hear is that we need to be very respectful and understanding traditions and values that shape parenting practices, that this is a conversation that needs to happen to help understand parenting practices. And I also hear how important it is to you that we let families know that babies don't have to die,
right? That
we can do something about this.
And my mom would kill me if she knew I was saying this, but my mom put all the grandbabies on the bed. And we thought it was normal, you know, Granny bonding with the baby. But now that I'm older and now that I see that is not the way to do things, gratefully she didn't sleep with the babies, you know, she just bonded with them and put them on the bed with her. But ignorance is bliss. But I don't think it's ignorance. I just feel I don't think it's ignorance. I think it's ignorance and not neglect. Because if people knew that this was a real issue, they wouldn't do it.
There is something really valuable about that closeness and bonding that we don't want to lose.
Right.
That's a really important tradition and practice. So, Ms. Purnell, Ms. Jackson talked about wishing she had known about pack and plays, and I wonder if you can talk about why you think pack and play and that resource is important.
I think that the pack and play resources is important because there's a lack of communication about these programs. There's a need to practice safe sleep in the neighborhood for moms and dads who don't know about it, and demonstration of the pack and play throughout our community will also benefit for safe sleep.
Great. And so what do you think providers can do to better communicate with families about pack and play resources and safe sleep resources?
Providers can put out flyers. Okay.
You shared with me before that through a program you were part of, you had access to a pack and play.
Yes.
And how did that? What was helpful about that for you?
My pack and play for my twins came from the St. Louis Crisis Nursery, and I had to get the pack and play before my babies were able to come home from the St. Louis NICU. They came out to my house and they set it up for me, and it was really great. That was my first time using a pack and play.
Ms. Purnell, thank you. Ms. Jackson, really thank you for being here today, for helping to plan this webinar, being part of the Infant Health Action Team. The points you make are really important and lead us into our next speaker, who is looking at these issues across the country. I'd like to introduce Dr. Joya Creer-Perry, President and founder of the National Birth Equity Collaborative. And she's joining us from New Orleans. Dr. Creer-Perry, are you there? Appears that we have some technical issues. I may switch our agenda and move to if Dr. Wathen is available.
Yes.
Great. We will come back to Dr. Creer-Perry. Introduce Dr. Wathen. He is Assistant Professor of Pediatrics at St. Louis University School of Medicine, Medical Director of the General Medical Units at FSM Health Cardinal Glennon, and a member of the FLOURISH Infant Health Action Team. Dr. Wathen, you're a champion of safe sleep here in St. Louis. Please share with us your perspective.
Yes. Thank you to everyone for joining us this morning. I appreciate you listening in, and hopefully I can talk about a few of these things and teach a few things about them. I'll speak mostly about the different types of devices or sleep environments that kids can be put in, including the new kid on the block, at least in the United States, with baby box. I'll also be talking about non-portable cribs and bassinets. If we can advance to the next. Are you able to advance the slide? Oh, all right. The first is really the crib that most people, I think, are familiar with. It's a non-portable crib. It's kind of the gold standard. You see the picture there on the right, typically made of wood with slats surrounding and a separate mattress that is put inside. The Consumer Product Safety Commission monitors these and does safety. They last updated the standards in 2011. That included removing drop sides from available due to infant entrapment concerns. Also, slats greater than 2 3/8 inches apart, strength. Still with these, we always recommend our safety measures, which is to have a firm mattress placed in it, which must be purchased separately, a fitted mattress sheet over that, and of course no positioners, loose blankets, pillows, soft animals, crib bumpers, or anything like that in the crib with the baby. Some of the benefits of using a crib like this is that it's really durable. It can last for generations potentially. The infant can stay in it till probably at least 3 years of age, and many of them will then convert actually to a larger bed. It allows air circulation, but some of the disadvantages are that these can actually be costly, up into the hundreds and thousands of dollars. They are durable, but they're not easily moved. They're very heavy, difficult to pull and reassemble. So if any family is moving frequently, this is not a good option. Or if a family financially is unable to purchase one, it's not a good option. These are the reasons why this isn't, a crib that we normally give out anywhere. The next slide. Can we advance to the next slide?
Hopefully that is showing the next slide for you. It is on our screen.
Oh, no, I don't have the next one. If everyone can see it, the next slide should be the non-portable crib, or I'm sorry, the portable crib. You may know it also as pack and play or there we go, portable play yard. This is more of a low-cost portable version of the previous infant crib that I showed you. The Consumer Product Safety Commission does test these as well and put new standards in place in 2013, which include making sturdier side rails and brackets, sturdier mattress attachments. We also recommend that a firm mattress is in it. Most of these come with a mattress, which is basically a thin foam pad at the bottom. These also can have fitted sheets that are bought to put in the bottom. And of course, we recommend no positioners, loose blankets, pillows, soft animals, things like that in the crib. Some of the benefits is this is a much lower cost non-portable crib. Of course, it's more portable. Most of them can be collapsed into a small cube, which can be carried wherever you need to go. They have wheels frequently, so they can be wheeled about inside the home. There's mesh sides, which allow for air circulation. Kids can stay in these up to about 2 years of age. The main disadvantage is that they can be somewhat complicated to kind of tear down, but once you read the instructions or are taught, it's after that. The cost, like I said, is much better. Through Cribs for Kids, we can get these at just under $50. But if you go to the store, these can be upwards of a couple $100. And then next slide. The next slide will be for bassinet. You may know this is kind of a lower cost version, much smaller than the portable infant cribs, which we just had shown. The Consumer Product Safety Commission does have standards in place for these. These were put in place mostly for the side height as well as the mesh and fabric coverings to ensure that those are safe for the infant. They also load testing to ensure that they can handle the weight of an infant, especially if they're have any integrity issues. One of the bigger positives is this is typically a lower cost, though some of them actually can go into the thousands for some of the fancier models that shake, play songs, and things like that. The other benefits is that they're more portable, though not as portable as a pack and play or play yard. One of the disadvantages is babies can only stay in this about 3, maybe 4 months of age, and then they really need to fit into a different sleep environment. That's one of the bigger disadvantages with it. There's also concerns about the fabric size, which may not allow circulation. And then, of course, as they get older and developmentally are more able to pull and sit up, then they would not be able to be in that bassinet any further after that. Next slide, please. And then this is kind of the newest kid on the block in the U.S. These are the baby boxes, which were popularized in Finland. It is a cardboard box with, similar to the bassinet, pack and play, kind of a thin foam pad in the bottom. In Finland, this is given actually as a maternity package in the first trimester for all expectant mothers. Currently, the Consumer Product Safety Commission does not have any standards in place. At this point, they are working on developing them, but they do not currently have any standards. They're not currently recommended by the American Pediatrics, Cribs for Kids, NIH, and several other organizations for several concerns, which I'll slide. One of the main benefits is it's more portable. You can move it around, put it in different areas, that sort of thing. One of the concerns, like I mentioned, is really some of the costs can actually be fairly high on these boxes, upwards of $650, mostly based off what comes in the box with it. And can vary from about $50 to about $650. There are some concerns about its integrity as well, but or if the parents try to actually carry the baby in the box. You see here's some of the other concerns that we have. Not only us as in our action team, but throughout the United States. One, there's no research on its safety or effectiveness has been done in Finland or here, and currently the CDC is not doing any research into in baby boxes. The difference, or a big difference between Finland and the U.S. is Finland has quite a different healthcare system. They give these boxes to every single mother in their first trimester as really encouragement to get early prenatal care. Finland also provides a year of paid maternity leave and almost 2 months of paternity leave. They also have infant and neonatal home visiting. So there's quite a few different things that are put in addition to the box that we don't necessarily do here in the U.S. And these other things probably play quite a big role why their infant mortality is slightly lower than ours. Like I mentioned, the CDC is not currently funding any research. Another concern is infants will grow out of this baby box actually during the highest risk period for unexpected infant death. The highest risk period is between ages 2 and 6 months, and most kids will grow out of them at approximately 4 months of age. And this puts them at what will the parent do then? That they may put them in the bed with them or in a separate bed or an unsafe area. And then the other concern is that they would either this portable crib or regular crib or have to find a different one, which costs total. Another big concern, like you saw in the picture, was many of these boxes come with lids. Concern is that the lid may be placed on top of the box while the baby is in there, thus decreasing the air circulation even further. They are made out of cardboard, so infants could be attracted to them. Pets essentially jump into them. Cats and things like that tend to like boxes. And lastly, the integrity of the box. If it's in a humid environment for a period of time, will it continue to be sturdy? As well as what if it's in a home that has leaks, or what if the baby urinates or defecates on the box? That corrupt its integrity and no longer be a very good place for the infant to sleep. Then lastly here, the cost. As I mentioned, some of these can be actually quite expensive. $50 up to $650. Many of the current states taking baby boxes and giving them out are using a box that costs approximately $150 versus our pack and play programs here in St. Louis, which costs $50 for a pack and play. So if we were to keep this infant safe throughout their first year of life, that would mean we would give a $150 box plus another $50 pack and play on top of that, and spend over $200, where if we just do the pack and play from the beginning, we're at $50 throughout the whole time. We have quite a bit of savings by going with the pack and play. And these are some of the reasons why we are endorsing it for its use in St. Louis at this time. And that's it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Watson. We're going to move now to Lori Behrens, who is Executive Director of SIDS Resources and a member of the Flourish Infant Health Action Team, to fill us in about the Pack and Play program that is in place in St. Louis. Lori?
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. So basically, there are two ways that a parent or family in St. Louis may receive a Pack and Play through our program. First of all, we have our program partners. So we have 18 participating organizations. And if the family is receiving services through one of our program partners, an application is submitted to their home visitor or parent educator. Once this application is approved, the Pack and Play is then picked up by the program partner staff and delivered during a home visit. The safe sleep education is delivered one-on-one during that home visit. About 30 days, or sometimes a little longer, but a minimum of 30 days after the delivery of the Pack and Play, a follow-up visit is made to make sure that the Pack and Play is being used appropriately, and then to answer any questions about safe sleep. Each program partner staff who deliver these Pack and Plays have attended a Train the Trainer session about safe sleep for babies given by SIDS Resources. So they learn all about reducing the risk of SIDS and sleep-related infant deaths. And basically we do this so that the safe sleep education being delivered to the community is consistent. The second way that a family might receive a Pack and Play is for those parents and families not involved with one of our program partners or a home visitation program. For example, the Centering Pregnancy program that is goes on at Barnes is one that does not have a home visitation element, but those participants can participate in our Pack and Play program as well. They register directly through SIDS Resources, then they are enrolled in a 1-hour safe sleep class for babies. After attending that class, they're able to take home the Pack and Play. Not only are they taught about safe sleep during that class, but also about how to set up the Pack and Play. So they take the Pack and Play home, and then a follow-up phone call is made 30 days after the class to make sure that the Pack and Play is being delivered or being used appropriately, and also to answer any questions about safe sleep. As I said, we have about 18 program partners in the St. Louis area, and we do distribute between 350 to 400 Pack and Plays every year through this program.
Great, Lori. Thank you so much for that information about a program already in place in St. Louis. I'm going to hope that our technical issues have resolved and that we have our speaker, Dr. Joya Creer-Perry, back with us. Dr. Creer-Perry, are you there?
Can you guys hear me?
So,
yay!
yes,
okay.
I can hear you. Wonderful. Sorry about the technical issues, but
no, that's okay.
We'll pull up your slides, and
I think honestly, it's probably a good thing that I got to listen to the other presenters because it helps to make this a little better. So things work out for a reason. Thank you for having me.
Well, wonderful. We'll let you just introduce you briefly as the president and founder of the National Birth Equity Collaborative. Yep. And your slides should be up and scrolling. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, great. So yes, there's my little picture. We can go to the next slide. So the objectives for today in my 15 minutes are to describe the work of our organization, because I'm sure you're like, what in the world is that? Identify how birth equity, which is what we'll define, and safe sleep correlate, and then observe some complexities of safe sleep. We've done some work nationally, and we picked two examples, one from Cleveland and one to help you guys when you're doing this amazing FLOURISH work. And then identify some best practice initiatives and evaluate some equity consideration in current concepts. So next slide. So the mission of the National Birth Equity Collaborative is to reduce Black maternal and infant mortality through research, family-centered collaboration, and advocacy. We're about 2 years old. We have some funding through the Kellogg Foundation to get started, and our goal and our vision, our goal is to decrease Black infant mortality by 25% in the next 5 years in the cities with the highest numbers of Black infant mortality. We get away from the word rates as much because that's so public healthy and other folks don't understand it, and it's trying to be more accessible to the community. And our vision is that every Black infant will celebrate a healthy first birthday. Next slide. So quickly just run through some of our other programs that we offer. You can go next slide. So the first is Safe Landing. You know, if you think about it, when babies go home from the NICU, they weigh about 4 pounds usually if they're premature babies. And that's a moment that they're really fragile. And so what do we do to help with the 4-pound baby who might have multiple appointments and oxygen and a apnea monitor and all kinds of things? And so we've created a home-based intervention targeting at-risk infants leaving the NICU. And facilitators provide culturally appropriate at-risk families through the infant's first birthday with regular home visits and connected in the social services. And we've actually done that here in Louisiana and in New York as a pilot. Next slide. So what I mentioned earlier is that the funding from Kellogg came to do what's called a campaign for Black babies. And as the purpose, the goal of the campaign was to interview Black women in the cities that are highlighted. So although St. Louis was one of the cities that has one of the highest rates of Black infant mortality, the highest numbers of Black infant deaths, we didn't interview women there. We can always come back, but we haven't done that. But the states that are red, the cities that are red, are the places that we interviewed Black women who had had infant deaths. And then we, along with the Tulane School of Public Health, created what's called the Birth Equity Index, where we can look at infant mortality not as a medicalized phenomenon, but really one that's based around social determinants of health. For example, something is you might not think about. The higher your pollution in your community, the higher your rate of infant mortality. So there's an opportunity for policymakers to save babies by working on their pollution in their city. Next slide. So some other things that we offer, we do things like this, which webinars. We also do racial equity workshops. We do trainings with health departments. We are working with the National FEMUR and the National PAMR group. We work on kind of reframing and messaging, and a lot of this talk for the next few minutes will be about that kind of focus group and messaging and marketing to make sure that people with the target or your goal of trying to decrease infant mortality actually occurs. Okay, next slide. And so Black Mamas Matter. About 2 years ago, the UN sanctioned the U.S. because we are the only industrialized country where maternal mortality, or women dying within a year of childbirth, is on the rise. And so based upon that, we have created an alliance across the country of women working to advocate and drive research build power and shift culture around Black maternal health. It's really usually framed to say, a very personal responsibility lens. So to say things like, well, the reason that the rate of Black maternal death is 4 times the white death is because Black women are more obese. But we're not 4 times more obese. We're obese, but not that much. So, really just working to reframe what we could do as a community to change some of these outcomes. Next slide. So to the point of the talk today, thinking about safe sleep and the term birth equity. So when we created the organization, we had to come up with a definition and really define what does equity mean. And a lot of times we looked at places like the World Health Organization and other APHA and words around health equity and just health equity in general. And so, well, what would that mean for birth? And, equity is not going to be a place. We're not going to magically arise tomorrow and everybody is the same. It's really going to take forever us agreeing that we need to create the assurances forever for the conditions of optimal birth for all people with a willingness to address racial and social inequalities in a sustained effort. We realize that every time we get some improvements, we also get some setbacks. So we need to put in a system that ensures that we always have improvements for everyone. And so safe sleep in general is evolving. We spent a lot of years doing these safe sleep campaigns, and a lot of cities still spend hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars really creating these campaigns, marketing campaigns. But really we're learning that it's evolving. It's not just about a campaign. It's also a conversation with, just like you had earlier, with women who are really being impacted and letting them have a voice in how the work happens. So it's an evolving set of guidelines that inform campaigns to educate caretakers, reduce the risk of suffocation, SIDS, SUIDS, and infant mortality. Safe Sleep seeks to target and mitigate the racial and social factors that contribute to the Black infant mortality disparities. So in St. Louis, as you just pointed out earlier, Black babies are 4 times more likely to die from SIDS than white babies. Next slide. So some of these things are going to be a little repetitive, but repetition never hurt. So what are some things that you could do to help with birth equity and safe sleep? So breastfeeding. So as you know, women of color are disproportionately underrepresented in low-wage work. It's difficult when you have hourly paid jobs to have time to take off in order to be able to do appropriate breastfeeding. There are little or no maternity leave and limited access to on-site pumping. And there's stigma from businesses, supports, and policies. So if you're encouraging breastfeeding to improve slave sleep outcomes, it's not just encouraging the woman to do it, but what are we doing with our policies as far as paid leave in our communities? How are we as people inside of health departments working to encourage businesses to make room for and support on-site pumping? And what are we doing about, as a community, thinking about a living wage for all people so that they can afford to do these things? Room sharing. As was mentioned by the amazing women who were interviewed at the beginning of this talk, a lot of this is really cultural. Parents feel the need to have a physical contact with the infant to provide optimal safety, comfort, and protection. And so to say put the baby alone in another room doesn't feel culturally appropriate for most people. So you have to honor that when you are talking to families and to women about their babies and what they should be doing, and not devalue it. This is especially true in small urban living spaces or neighborhoods with high crime rates. It's a real safety then. And room sharing increases probability of bed sharing. So you have to acknowledge that people want to sleep in the same room and then work through, well, you could do that, but you don't necessarily have to share the same bed. And how would that, what are some strategies that you could do together to ensure that that could happen? Prenatal care, there's a limited length of patient-provider interaction. As an OBGYN, I can tell you most patients at the most spend 10 or 15 minutes with you in the room. The rest of their time in their day is all these other factors. And so, there's a lot of distrust of the healthcare system, and people immediately go to Tuskegee, but you don't have to go that far. I'm sure there's some people in St. Louis that can tell you a story about some family member that was mistreated at some hospital there in the city, or some person who they felt like didn't get the appropriate care. So that isn't a foreign concept. Your community members can tell you how they feel about the care that they get inside the healthcare system there in your city. And as education increases, you get more patient autonomy and agency. So in cities that have a low educational attainment, you're going to get less autonomy and agency, and so you're going to feel that and see that in some of your health outcomes. And so improving educational attainment of your community members will actually improve your outcomes for equity. Next slide. So you've probably seen these slides. These are some of the campaigns from across the country. We all know them. In fact, when we do focus groups, we've done them in several cities. A lot of the moms can tell you, oh yeah, I've seen that slide. I've seen this billboard. It's on a bus. It's at the hospital. They see signs up, alone on my back in a crib, the ABCs of safe sleep. And those are great messages. However, they can be really simplistic. It's almost like they just say no to drugs. It's easy to say that on a billboard or a sign, but when you get into real life, what are all the other things that are going on, including cultural things, the house not being warm, a lot of other things that would make a person make a decision despite seeing these signs and knowing this information. Next slide. So the complexities of safe sleep. Safe sleep was created in response to the persistence of unsafe sleep environments and preventable infant mortality. So you see this and think, God, if only people knew. If we just told them, they would all magically stop sleeping and co-sleeping. But the truth is, safe sleep must respond to the cultural, environmental, and social determinants of health inequities that impact all disparities. Just having a billboard and saying, if only you would, isn't getting us there. And even if you have a penetration of a certain amount of people who understand what they should be doing and can tell it back to you, they still have cultural and environmental things that are going on that cause them to still have unsafe sleep environments. Next slide. So here's an example of a couple of the things we've done. So in Cleveland, we did focus groups, and the purpose was to evaluate and rebrand the safe sleep messaging in the community. So we had pregnant women and expecting fathers and influencers gathered to share meaningful experiences and perspectives, similar to what you had earlier. And, one of the things I love that I think it was maybe Angela, one of them said was that this neglect is ignorance, or it's the lack of knowledge. And so it's not just the knowledge of knowing the people, but how could you, if the choice is to sleep together versus not, what other possibilities or other choices are you giving to moms in order to make that happen in their own homes, in their own environments? Next slide. So we had focus groups that had community engagement and input. We had real-time feedback, and we got new information. We got information about things like some of the neighborhoods in Cleveland, the music was really, really loud. And so part of the reason that they have to stay in the same room is because they can't, the babies can't sleep through the night because the noises are so loud. So they're constantly getting up to get the babies back to sleep. And so that is very disruptive to having a full night's sleep. And that's not something that the mothers have a lot of control over because that's really an environmental issue. Next slide. So what the mothers came up with from the focus group was called Motherhood is a Sisterhood 216. 216 is the area code in Cleveland. And they leveraged social media, Facebook and Instagram, created a campaign where they could take pictures in their own rooms, in their own houses of their babies sleeping safely. It's very different from a kind of glossy branded billboard, but really seeing people who they look like and who they know saying, look, I am making this choice. This is how I deal with my fussy baby that's waking up. Instead of me just falling back to sleep with a baby on my chest, which is unsafe, this is the things that I do to soothe them with music, or these are the places that I lay my baby down. And so we can build a community through social media. Next slide. So what we learned was there is a need for social connectedness, and there's limited opportunities for peers to personally connect within their communities. And so people don't know that these things are going on. They might not even know that a friend or someone that they know, a friend of a friend, has had a baby to die. And so having a space for connectedness, there was a really desire for that. There was a willingness to share experiences and tips and information. Moms in these spaces have figured out some great ideas of how they can do this for themselves, that people have some efficacy, that we could listen to them and some strategies and then share what they've learned living in the communities of how they resource and ensure that their babies have a safe sleep environment. There were some neighborhood-specific concerns that talk a little bit about the noise, about housing safety, about quality of child care. the culture there, people don't generally put their babies in daycare till they're old enough to talk because they don't trust the daycare workers. And that's a very cultural and specific, and you wouldn't know that unless you actually talk to the women in those communities. It's not an assumption you would make. Residents are aware of best practices around slave sleep, and all the women, like I said, could tell you what the ABCs were. They'd seen the billboards, but they wanted to be close to their children due to unsafe sleep environments, not sleep environments, but unsafe environments where they lived in general and dangerous situations. So how do we mitigate that for them? How do we help with that as a community and agree that that's something important that we want to do? Next slide. So environment, housing quality, community safety is factored into safe sleep decisions every time a baby goes to sleep. Economic, these are some lessons that we, can take back to policymakers. And ability to pay for and access appropriate baby sleep spaces. So I love the pack and play and the fact that they don't just hand them a thing. Thinking through the earlier talks, the U.S. is really good about giving people things, breast pumps, car seats, boxes. But actually having a system where you provide support, where you go and do a home visit, which is what you're doing in St. Louis, and you have people connected, that's an amazing opportunity to actually have, not just to hand somebody a thing that they could use inappropriately, but actually have a connectedness that you can help to give a bond around. Education, even when the appropriate space is available, it may not be used because of inadequate education or poor messaging. It is difficult to the images that you pick are really important. And despite adequate education and economic means, non-parent and generational influencers have significant care and caregiving. One of the moms mentioned that their mother would put the baby on the bed. Moms, grandmothers have a lot of influence in this space, and if you don't have messaging that talks to them or speaks to them, you're missing a big part of who's going to be actually putting the baby to sleep. And parents and caregivers without adequate support may disregard safe sleep due to fatigue and convenience. If you've worked a long hourly shift, you finally get home, and the baby is crying and won't go to sleep by itself, there is a strong desire to figure out a way to just get the baby to go to sleep, which might not be the most safe way. Next slide. And then the last part is about the work we did in New York. Same thing. They want to do some message testing. We did some focus groups with parents and caregivers. We brought in consumers, community members, and third-party involvement for message development. And we really wanted to broaden the perception of consumers to whole people and part of a community and not just a mom who has a baby who doesn't have also all these other things going on, but really placing them inside a community. Next slide. And so we tried to evaluate the best way to personalize our own biases around what people belief system about what's the best for the moms. If you believe that the baby should be in another room, that might be your own personal bias and not necessarily what's medically sound. And to be flexible and respond to the potential of the cultural and confidence between what your group believes and what the target community needs. Next slide. Next slide, please. Okay. So we had 3 different marketing firms after we did the focus groups to present to us some ideas from what they heard from the women, some images and some ways that they would illustrate kind of a better way to do this marketing plan. And one of the things was to use mixed images between not just pictures but also illustrations to make it a positive and not more of a policing, but idea of what ways can your baby dream, and what are the things, and then also to look at using warning signs, because a lot of the mothers talked about, as was mentioned earlier, that some people don't understand the real danger, and so making it where it's not, where you do have some warning signs and to clearly note what some of the hazards could be. Next slide. One of the other marketing firms that talked about using both traditional and social media, which is a current theme. I think a lot of the younger moms now spend more time really on social media than historically, where we would spend a lot of big budgets on billboards. to make sure that people understand that it's life and death, that this is not just ask. Same way that there was a time we never used, the analogy was seatbelts. Growing up, I'm old enough that we didn't use seatbelts when I was little, and I can't imagine not doing it now. So once the culture becomes that this is something that's life or death and a baby could really die, despite whatever your cultural norm was, people then start changing their behaviors. And they use strong negative language. So these are some of the pictures that they chose. And then the last one, I think. Next slide. This one really this is the one that we actually ended up using because they used a local physician to show an expertise from someone that looked like them, that they recognized, that sounded like them, who was also a position of authority to give these kind of messages. And so it plays on the natural protective instincts to understand that the parents want their children to survive and that there's not an idea of neglect or not a desire for them to do well. And so having an authority figure talk about it in a way, in a language that they understand and sounding and using terminology that would be helpful for them and using facts and information to combat any misconceptions. And so I think that is it. Well, next, is that my last slide, I think? So really the point, the goal of this was really to think through, as you're building out next steps for Flourish, when you start thinking about campaigns or working with the communities, to think through all these other, that it's not just the mom lives inside of an entire context, a social context, and that she has to make choices every day about where the baby will sleep, and that they're not as simple as we might think they would be. That's it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Crear-Perry. That was really so much insight coming from other places around the country that we can learn from, and to build on what we heard from our moms here today as well. Thank you. I'm going to now turn this over to Melinda Olemiller, CEO of Nurses for Newborns, and a member of the Flourish Cabinet and chair of the Infant Health Action Team. Melinda.
Thank you, Kendra. So a safe bed is really just the beginning, as we've been highlighting in the last 50 minutes, and certainly such important information brought to us by Dr. Crear-Perry. We know that this is a complex issue. Flourish, as our regional group of experts and community members and who are passionate about addressing all aspects of infant mortality that we can possibly make an impact upon, it is our position that the St. Louis region build on the infrastructure that we already have in place and build and align the resources where they make the most sense. So this is just the first step in aligning our region around safe sleep so that every baby in St. Louis celebrates a happy and healthy first birthday. And that is that we're encouraging St. Louis organizations to align and support the region's resources around existing portable crib distribution programs, and rather than redirecting our resources to baby boxes, as we have been talking about the details of. There are multiple organizations who distribute portable cribs. Each of them have their own eligibility and availability. Most of them provide support and education in some way around the distribution of that crib. SIDS Resources, who we heard from Lori Behrens just a bit ago, Cardinal Glennon, Nurses for Newborns, St. Louis County Department of Public Health, and other local organizations can provide free portable cribs to families who are eligible, and teach the parents, as we mentioned, how to put the children to sleep safely, and reminding everyone that this is really just the beginning. The next slide. There are lots of ways to get involved. If this webinar has sparked your interest, and we hope it has, you can commit to align and coordinate programs that you have that are under your influence around the existing portable crib programs in the St. Louis region. You can join our team. The Infant Action Team meets monthly and talks nearly daily to discuss these issues, and there's contact information on your screen. You can also share what you have done to promote safe sleep, or what barriers you see to safe sleep in the comments box, and even if we don't have time to address them this morning, we will take those to heart. You can follow Flourish on social media. There's lots of ways to find us. And you can also become a donor. You can donate a used pack and play, a gently used pack and play, to Nurses for Newborns. We're one of the organizations that will take and recycle a used pack and play. We also distribute new pack and plays that are when we have donors who direct us to do so. You can also donate to any number of the organizations, including the ones represented today in the webinar, and the ones that we're going to be providing a list for you so that that organization can purchase a new pack and play and distribute it to a family with the education. Next slide. So we have resources available for you. If you go onto our website, I would encourage you to do so and look around. We have handouts. We have this webinar recording will be up on the website. We also have some resources and links for you, both nationally and locally, and then more specifically a list of the pack and play programs that we know about, the portable crib programs that we know about here in St. Louis. Again, each one has their own eligibility, but we're trying to get this all in one place so that providers have a listing of where they can get assistance for families.
Thank you, Melinda. We are already putting you over time. It's 10:03. So we're capturing the questions and comments that have come through on the chat box. We will document those and put up answers on the website where these other resources are. So we won't address those questions right now. As Melinda said, this is the start. The Infant Health Action Team is just beginning its work, and it realizes that a safe bed for babies is the beginning. And there's so much more conversation and work to be done to bring our community together around infant health and safe sleep for babies. So we hope you take away from today a couple of things. There are great work already happening in St. Louis that we can build upon. Programs and resources that are doing great work that we can put our efforts behind and reinforce and serve more families. We have expertise in our community and expertise through partner organizations like the National Birth Equity Collaborative that can help us move forward. And we know that this is a complex issue that's more than just a safe bed. And so I hope you walk away with a commitment to work with Flourish to learn and grow in our efforts to address safe sleep. Thank you for your time today. Have a good day.